Hello, denizens of the corporate universe. Your former network executive is going to dive into Disney's controversial Disney Plus streaming series, Ironheart, with a little green light or not action. Pop culture YouTubers have already weighed in on the trailer, and reviews are following Tuesday's debut, actually. Just from the thumbnails and titles, you can tell it's getting a rough ride. 3 episodes have been released, and the remaining will be dumped next week. It looks like Disney wants to just get it out and be done with it. The green light or not process lets me put some distance between the emotional and empirical nature of judging these projects. TV has one basic imperative, and that is to make something people want to watch. But which people is also a major factor. As always, I base green light or not on only the first or the pilot episode and provide a final verdict at the end of its run. First up, does it have an easily understood and engaging premise? As a superhero property, it is what we call high concept. The pilot is convoluted, and I'm not sure where it's going. I mean, from a series perspective, I'll get back to that later. Genius girl builds her own Iron Man suit, but to do what exactly? I couldn't tell, and I wasn't prepared to guess. She needs serious cash for her genius projects and easily succumbs to the lure of financial offerings provided by a gang of thieves. So she's going to be a criminal? That does not sound very superheroic, and I haven't read the comic books. I know some of you hate it when I apply the old network rules to these brilliant, groundbreaking streaming efforts, most of which have been abject failures, but streaming shows are not magical unicorns. It's still just TV. A series pilot needs to show us what we are going to be in for each week, what's to be expected each week. This pilot doesn't do that. It starts with an origin story. Well, sort of an origin story. Riri Williams gets expelled from MIT for ignoring assignment requirements. Oh, you crazy girl, you. And helping others plagiarize for money. She steals the prototype Iron Man suit she built there and heads to Chicago. Damn, not very truth, justice, and the American way of her. On one hand, it gave the pilot some good momentum and energy, excluding its silly plot contrivances. But origin stories are a bit of a cheat, often because they are the only interesting iteration of a superhero's saga. The premise also has to be engaging to a sizable enough audience to make the investment in it pay off. And here I'm going to be brutally frank. Ironheart was not designed for broad appeal. I'm giving this a 3 out of 10. Next is unique characters. Riri is definitely unique. She's a self-absorbed genius who, based on the pilot, doesn't really care about anyone but herself. Yes, unique, but is she likable? That's my biggest concern. We are introduced to the rabble of ne'er-do-wells she will be engaged with. We've seen similar heist teams already 100 times. This version has a charismatic Latino group leader, the mysterious Latino boss, a couple of lesbian ruffians who I couldn't tell whether they were Latinas or not, and they can take down a squad of security personnel. The screw-up computer whiz, who's the only straight white male in the group, and a bitchy black trans person who does something I wasn't quite sure of. They are the DEI Mission Impossible Squad. Riri's mother was background noise. We do meet Riri's dead best friend, Natalie, in flashbacks. She's important because her digital essence comes back as Ironheart's sassy version of Tony Stark's Jarvis. The secondary characters are, at least recognizable archetypes. 3 out of 10. And what about the casting? Well, I have to admit that Dominique Thorne's Riri Williams displayed moments of charm in between long stretches of insufferability. I would put the latter down to the script. Honestly, she was a pleasant surprise. Manny Montana managed to elevate his character, but the cast is huge and ungainly, and I'm going to give it 3 out of 10. What's the home base for this show? Parker Robbins' hideout? The show didn't have enough time to develop that, so it wasn't really clear. Location is also a character, but there wasn't much time to get any Chicago flavor into the show. 1 out of 10. Hey, it might come out in episode 2, but the job of episode 1 is to establish these things. I don't make up the rules. Okay, yeah, actually I did. Great stories, well written. As I mentioned earlier, because episode 1 is an origin story of sorts, it clipped along fairly well. There were a couple of funny moments, including when her supersuit she stole from MIT after being expelled finally locked her out, whereby it tumbled to the pavement and smashed into pieces. Technically, even the parts she was lugging about belonged to MIT. Let's not quibble with logic. But Riri is not written as a likable character. Actually, she's quite arrogant, but not in that lovable, loutish Tony Stark way, more bitchy way. Will she have a redemption moment? Riri is more interested in getting the funds to do her personal projects than help others, it seems. The dialogue is not particularly memorable. It has way too many moving parts to juggle. The show is constructed as a 300-minute movie chopped up into 6 episodes, which has not worked very well for Disney so far. On my gag reflex scale, I actually found the Ironheart pilot more tolerable than Ahsoka, the Acolyte Echo, and even Agatha. Damn, there's something similar between all 5 of those shows. I just can't put my finger on it. 4 out of 5. Production values, all top-notch. The show looked good. 7 out of 10. Returning to a state of equilibrium. The pilot gives us clues as to where home base will be, but not the rest state of the show. The characters were well enough defined to give us an idea of where they were coming from, but not what the equilibrium state will be. 2 out of 10. Longevity. Okay. As I stated earlier, I don't know what the repeating theme will be for this show, if it will have one at all. These unrolled extended movies don't give much of a clue as to what might happen in a theoretical season 5. Helping her criminal friends each week to rob and pillage is not a formula for long-term success. So far, the family interactions have been restricted to telling her to give up her dream, to get Riri to give up her dream of her silly Ironheart suit. 2 out of 10. Creative team. Brian Bendis has a long and storied career as a premier comic book writer with some serious executive producer credits, but of course we know what that could mean. Mike Deodato, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, is a comic book illustrator with decades of experience. The series is primarily produced by Marvel Studios, and Ryan Coogler serves as an executive producer, which also could mean involvement in name only. This looks like a Kevin Feige project. 6 out of 10. Am I chomping at the bit to watch the next episode? No, except to find out what the repeating framework might be, if there is one. In fact, this looks to be a painful exercise. 1 out of 10. The total score is 32 out of 100. I recommend that Riri repeat the year. Definitely the broader audience will not be interested in it, and I'm not entirely sure the target audience is going to be much interested in it either. I know my subs skew a little older than 18 years of age, but if there are any of you out there, I would love to hear your thoughts. Does it connect, with you? It's young hipness, the stuff that you guys talk about. As it stands, green light or not, it's a not for me. Hard pass. But as I always say, one can't always guess the reaction of the audience, though based on recent industry news, it's not looking too good. A lot of effort was put into the show, but Ironheart was an ill-conceived project whose only goal was continuing Disney's failed efforts at replacement theory. Recent MCU Disney Plus series like Hawkeye, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and Moon Knight were all reported to have had budgets of around $25 million per episode. I would hazard a guess that Ironheart is in the same league. Let's see if I can make it to the end of the series. Till next time, denizens, be seeing you.